Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we're going to be sewing the Simply Sweet tunic or dress, and it is just that. It is simply sweet. It is super cute. It's got the cutest little neck ruffle. It's got, you could do sleeveless, you could do sleeves, you could do ruffle at the bottom. It's got the cute little skirt. It is super cute, and I've got the perfect fabric for it, so I'm super excited. Let's get to it. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is prep our ruffle, our neck ruffle, if you're doing a neck ruffle. And you can do, cut it a ½ inch shorter if you want it to not hem it, because knit fabric you can do that. But I did go ahead and cut it a ½ inch shorter anyway, and I do plan to hem it just because I'm using a panel and I don't want it to cover up too much of the panel. So my ruffle is going to be a tiny, it's going to be just a small ruffle, a cute little, just tiny ruffle right there, because I didn't want it to cover up my beautiful fabric. So when you look at it, don't say that ruffle is really small. That's why, because even though I cut the ½ inch off to make it without a hem, I'm still gonna go ahead and hem it. So if you're using a woven fabric, you're gonna fold up a ½ inch and then another ½ inch so it doesn't unravel on you. But since I'm using a knit fabric, you can either do fold up ½ inch and steam and hem, or you can do a rolled hem, or you can do, sometimes what I'll do is I'll serge the edge first and then I go ahead and top stitch it. So it is up to you. I'm gonna go ahead and fold and top stitch. I've already top stitched it, and I'm over here at my sewing machine because we're gonna go ahead and gather our ruffle for the neck. And how I'm going to gather that ruffle is I'm going to use a long straight stitch. I'm gonna leave a tail in the back. I'm gonna switch my stitch to a 4, and it's gonna be a long basting stitch, and that's gonna be what I gather my ruffle with. When you pull your thread, leave a nice little tail for gathering. Did I not tell you I had the cutest little panel? So see what I mean? How it is so close, so I don't want it to, I didn't want it to be too long. So you can either, I like to go ahead and find my half of my ruffle and my bodice. That way I know exactly where I want that half to be, so that my gathers are even. So I'm just gonna match out just shoulder seams and find that middle and mark it. I just do like a little notch. Okay, and then now I can go ahead and gather my ruffle. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull on the bobbin thread. I'm gonna make it go, pull on it and gather it. I like to gather like 1/2 to that half mark I made. Where are you? It's right here, so I know how much to gather it. So this is my half, and I'm gonna spread it out equally all the way up to the top. And I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Then I'm gonna go ahead and pin evenly, spreading out those ruffles evenly. Now, if you want the same ruffle on the back, you would just double the ruffle and add it to the back as well. But I'm just doing the front, and then we're gonna go over, I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and use the same stitch that I used to gather this to baste it together. So I just want a stitch that's gonna hold it down, so when I sew the neckband on, my ruffle doesn't come apart, doesn't move while I'm trying to do it. So I'm just gonna go over and do that real quick. Just a basting stitch right on top of the whole neckline. Alright, so once our ruffle has been gathered, we're gonna grab our back and we're going to match up those shoulder seams, because we're gonna sew those shoulder seams together. And we are also going to go ahead and sew our backs together. I mean our sides together, our backs together, our sides. So I'm gonna pin my shoulders and I'm gonna pin my sides. Now you all know that I like to do more than one thing at a time, so I'm gonna go ahead and grab my sleeves. Now if you're doing bands on your sleeves, you would go ahead and sew the bands on the round, and then we would attach them basically the same way we're gonna attach the sleeves. But if you have questions about that, we have a video on our YouTube channel that's about bands and how to attach bands, and you can go check that out. What I'm doing with my sleeve is we're gonna match up those side seams, those inseams right here on the sleeve, and we're gonna sew them together. That way I sew everything all at once. Well, not everything, but a couple of the things that need to be sewn anyway. All right, I'm gonna go sew it. Alrighty, so it's all sewn together. And I forgot to mention the neckband. We gotta do our neckband. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna like better. If I'm going to want, look at that, it's gonna be super cute. If I'm going to want a black neckband so it kind of stands out, or if I just want the neckband that it's gonna match the little farm animals and everything that's gonna be on the back. I wish the cow was the right way. I feel like it's gonna be like just the butt and the bottoms of everything unless I do it backwards. Man, I should have thought about that ahead of time. I think I'm just gonna stick with the black, especially because of that reason, that, you know, I don't want to just see the legs in the pig butt. Okay, so I'm gonna do the black. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my band first and I'm gonna fold it wrong sides together, because I want to give it a memory crease. It makes it a lot easier to sew when I have a memory crease. Alright, and then I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and sew these right sides together first, just real quickly. Alright, once my neckband has been sewn together like in a round, I'm going to fold those raw edges, right sides together, where we already made that memory crease. And that's why it's so helpful to make that memory crease, because it just guides you. And I have my back, and I'm gonna go all the way to the front, and I'm gonna notch just like I did with my ruffle, just a little bit, and pin, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do my back and my front, and then go to the sides. One side and then the other side, and those are my quarters. And then I'm gonna do the same thing to our neckband. So I'm gonna quarter my my bodice neck. This is my neckband. So here's my bodice. I already have my front, because remember, I'm gonna meet those shoulders and go to the back. Remember, we found our front earlier when I was gonna put that ruffle, so I already have that marked. So then I'm gonna match up that mark that I made for the front. Where is it? Nose around, there it is. That mark I made for the front, and that mark, I'm gonna make a new mark for the front, because I'm kind of like, where is it? I can't, there's a couple of like areas where it could be the front. I just want to make really double sure. There's my front. So I'm gonna match up the front and the back together and go to the sides. And usually with different sizes it varies. Sometimes it's really close to the seam, shoulder seam, and then sometimes it's farther out from the shoulder seams depending on the size. But your shoulder seams are not your quarter points, so make sure you match your find your quarter points. Then I'm gonna grab my neckband and match those up. So the seam I'm gonna match to the back. I am so excited about this little thing. And then the sides to the parts I marked it, and the front to my front, and then my other side. Now when I go to sew this, I have to be very careful that I am catching my ruffle in the neckband. I'm gonna pull on my neckband so it's even, and I'm gonna sew. So let's do that. When I'm sewing my neck, I like to start on the back. And I lift up my presser foot and I put it down, and then I make my needles go down so it catches my fabric down. Then I'm gonna pull and even it all out so it's the raw edges are straight, and stretch out a little bit of the neckband so it evens out with your bodice, and then sew. And then I go to the neck section. This is my first ruffle area. I want to make sure that all my ruffles are in there, so you want to make sure that you're taking that into consideration, and take your time. Make sure your ruffles are standing up and so, and then go all the way around. Alright, so once that's done, I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to steam my ruffle and my neckband down. I want to steam it towards the bodice, that neckband. Might be a little stubborn because of your ruffle, but it will. And you want to go back and top stitch along that ruffle. Top stitch your neckband along that ruffle. It's not a raffle, it's a ruffle. And I'm going to use my cover stitch, but if you're using your sewing machine, you need to make sure that you're using a stretch stitch. You don't want your stitch to get too tight around the neck. If you just use a straight stitch, it will be too tight and you'll pop the stitches as your child will be trying to put it on. It'll pop the stitches. So you want to make sure that it has a stretch stitch. Now before I go top stitch, I'm gonna top stitch like right along that edge right there. Okay, but before I go top stitch, I'm gonna go ahead and use my seam ripper that I put up here somewhere, and I think it went flying. And oh yeah, it did. And remove all those basting stitches along the neck. Holy cannoli, that took forever. Oh, phew. All right, so now you can go ahead and go top stitch. I'm trying to debate if I want to do a black top stitch or a white top stitch, because it's right here at the neckline. So I don't want it to be like too over the top if I do white, though I did do white right there. I might just leave the top stitching till the end when I can figure out what I want to do there. If I want to do it lighter, or if I want to do it white, or if I don't want to do it black. So I'm just gonna wait on that because it's looking super cute and I don't want to mess it up by doing something that I'm like, eh. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and just move on to the sleeve. So we already have the two sides. I'm gonna match up my sleeve, and first off I'm gonna find the top of it. So it's already folded, so I'm gonna match up this top. And actually you can go ahead and, if you want to now, hem that sleeve. You can go ahead and hem the sleeves first before you put them on there, before you sew them on. Might be a little bit easier to do, that way you don't have the bulk of the bodice on there. You're folding it 1/2 inch and then hemming. So maybe I'll just go ahead and do that too. Just get it done and over with now. You know, I'm all about getting things done, and I feel like maybe not. I don't know. What do you do? Do you get things done right away and then move on to the next step? I feel like sometimes saves me more time. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Maybe it doesn't. It's just, I mean, it's the same steps, but I just get it done and over with. So I'm gonna go ahead and hem that in 1/2 inch, and then a stretch stitch, either a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. I'm going to be doing my cover stitch. I get a lot of questions about how do you hem on a serger overlock, but it's not a serger, it's my cover stitch. It does look a lot like a serger, so that's why it can get confusing. But we do have a video on our channel that talks about different ways of hemming and stuff like that, and I think they do go over how to hem with your serger. So let's go ahead and hem those. Alrighty, so with my sleeves, oh, I did them just like the armbands would be, and I am doing an inset sleeve, but the pattern calls for sewing the sleeves on before you sew them together. So if you're sewing the sleeves on and you want to do, before you sew your sides, you're going to open your bodice and put your sleeves in first. I went ahead and sewed them like this, so I'm gonna attach them this way. But if you like the other method better, then there are you can go to see one of the other videos where I attach sleeves, really pretty much any video, and I'll show you, and it'll show you exactly how to attach them on the side before you sew them together. Whoops. I'm gonna keep going because this is the way that you would attach your armband. So let's pretend I'm doing armbands. So I've got my armband right sides together with my sleeve, and I'm matching all those sides. And honestly, the sleeve will turn out just fine doing it this way. It's just two different ways of doing it. The other way might be a little bit easier for some. I do like doing it this way as well. So, and then it is right sides together and seam to seam, and then top to top, the top of the sleeve to the top of the seam. And you might find that you like doing it this way better. I don't know. And we're matching up those side seams, the whole arm side. And then I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and sew them together. But then I'm gonna show you just your skirt, which will be our next step. We're only going to sew, we're gonna grab our skirt and we're gonna put them right sides together, and we're gonna sew one raw edge, one side, one short side together. We're not gonna sew both two sides together because we're going to attach our ruffle, our bottom ruffle first. So I'm just sewing this one edge, and I'm gonna do the same thing for my ruffles. I'm going to grab my ruffles and sew them. Now, if you want to leave your ruffles raw, the edges, you can leave your raw edges, or if you wanted to hem, you can go ahead and hem. I think I might leave my raw edges, and then if for some reason later I'm like, hey, I think I like it better hemmed, then I'll go back and hem it. But if I don't have to hem it, I usually won't hem it. I just hem the neckline because you can really see it and it's right up front, and I'm like, just give it a good finish. So I'm putting these together, but I'm leaving the raw edge at the one end. So here are my ruffles together. I'm gonna go ahead and sew them, and sew this one too, and sew our sleeves on. So we're doing like a bunch of things at once. All right, our bodice is done. How stinking adorable is this? Oh my word. Holy cow. Utterly adorable. All right, so now we're gonna go on and move to our skirt, and I'm gonna open up my skirt. And what I'm gonna do, make sure you do it the right way if it's directional print. You don't want to mess that up. I'm gonna go ahead and work on our ruffle first. So I know that it's 3 ruffles, so I'm gonna fold this one in half, and I'm gonna find my half because I know that that's what's gonna go right at this half right here of my skirt. And obviously your ruffles are bigger than your skirt, so I'm gonna go over to my sewing machine and use a long basting stitch, just like I did for my neckline, just like I did for everything else, and put in a gathering stitch. Right now, if you wanted to go ahead and hem these ruffles, if you wanted to hem, you can go ahead and do that now. But if you're not gonna hem, then we'll move on to put in that gathering stitch. Now, some people like to do 2 rows of gathering stitches. That way it does it better for gathering. There are different ways to gather, and there is a video on our YouTube channel that shows different ways of gathering. So if you wanna go check that out and come back. I'm just gonna do 1 row because I'm using a different sewing machine that I usually use, and the longest stitch on that one is a 4. And as you saw me struggling with the neck gathers, not gathers, but with the basting stitch, a 4, it's harder to pull out than a 6, which is my usual sewing machine. So I'm going to just do 1 row because I don't want to spend my whole afternoon pulling basting stitches. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we're gonna gather it and attach it. Alrighty, now that that basting stitch is done, I'm gonna find where I marked my middle. It's gotta be somewhere around here because here it is. And that is where I'm gonna guide myself. So I'm gonna gather this side from here and then this side from to right here. So I'm gonna pull that bobbin thread and gather my ruffle the width of my skirt. Alright, so my gathering stitch popped. My stitch popped right there. So what I'm gonna do is I came right here to right where my half is, and I'm just going to pull that stitch and gather that 1/2, and then I'm gonna go back to my sewing machine and just put another basting stitch on this side alone, because that one went well. This side snapped on me because I got a little too confident. So I'm just gonna go do the same thing. And this is why you usually do 2 gathering stitches instead of just 1. But I was being stubborn, and that's okay. That just means I have to do double the work that I didn't want to do in the first place. Y'all, all I can do is laugh at myself. I put my first basting stitch at the bottom. That's alright. All you can do is laugh, right? That's all you can do. Just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. We're fine. We're all fine. We're gonna get it done one way or another. Whew. I hope I'm removing the right one. It'll be my luck that I'll be removing the one that I'm not supposed to remove. Alright. So I'm gonna finish removing this bottom gather because I don't need that bottom gather. I just need the top one. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish gathering the width of the Alright, now that it's gathered the width, now we're going to go ahead and just even out all those ruffles, because you know they're mostly all right here in this one little area. So I want to go ahead and even them all out. Once they're evened out, we're gonna go ahead and start clipping right sides together, those raw edges of the bottom of the skirt. Ruffles are all ready. So now I'm gonna go ahead and serge them to my skirt. And then we'll sew our sides, attach our skirt, and we'll be done. I am super excited. It is super cute. I can't wait. All right, so now that my bottom ruffles are done, you can go ahead and remove that basting stitch or whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and sew them right sides together now and remove that basting stitch another time when I'm sitting in front of the TV and doing something else other than just removing a basting stitch, because that really isn't my favorite part of the whole thing. Removing the basting stitch, I don't know why. I just really dislike it. So I'm matching these raw edges and I'm going to sew that skirt to become one skirt on the round. So I'm just gonna go over there and do that really quick. Here I am one last time at the sewing machine for one last gathering stitch. But actually I want to go ahead, I almost forgot, mark my back. So I'm matching those seams together and I'm going to the front and the back. I want to know where I'm going to attach it to my skirt, so I want to match that now before I gather and end up not being able to tell. And then I'm just going to go ahead and put in a basting stitch, just like I did with the other ones. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So my tension on, my thread kept getting caught at the top because it was too loose. And that just reminded me that when I tighten my tension on my thread, it kind of does a little bit of gathering for me. And I totally didn't think about that, forgot about that when I was doing the long gathering, but anyway. So now I'm gonna go ahead and match up my sides on my bodice and mark my front and my back. I'm gonna lay it on my mat and I'm going to gather my skirt to fit my bodice. Hopefully all these stitches won't pop again like they did on the other one. Please don't. Alright, so now that it is the width of the skirt, of the bodice, I want to make sure that they're all even. I don't want a ton of gathers on one spot and no gathers on the other spot, so I want to make that all even. And then I'm gonna go ahead and match up right sides together. Almost there. I have a little spot right here that doesn't have very many ruffles, so I want to make sure. Okay, and then I've got my side seams right here and my middle spots, and I'm gonna match those to the middle spots of my bodice, right sides together, and then the side seams, right sides together, and then we're gonna go sew on our sewing machine, our serger, and we'll be done with this most beautiful outfit. I don't know why it's giving me such a hard time gathering today. I think it's because I was using a different machine that I'm used to. My machine I'm used to gathering with, and it does a nice stitch. So if I have to use this machine for more gatherings, I think I'm just gonna go with like gathering on my serger or gathering with elastic. I love gathering with elastic. I think it's super easy. There is a video on different gathering methods, so you can try whatever gathering method you think you like best and makes it easier for you. So I'm gonna continue to pin this and then we're gonna head over and sew it. We are finished. All we got left to do is pull out all the basting stitches, but this is utterly adorable, worth every single basting stitch I have to pull. Look at how stinking cute this is. I am about to make like 20 million more just because it is adorable. Oh my word, I can't get over it. I just can't. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you'll sew many more of this beautiful, beautiful pattern. Please let me know if you have any questions about anything that I did. Please comment, like, share, subscribe so you can be entered to our $50 Ellie and my gift certificate giveaway that we do every month. Come find us on Facebook or Instagram so you can share what you're making and you can see what everybody else is making and you can be inspired to make your own beautiful things. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all next time.